both of them, Emma and LaDon. So first I'll call up Fred to introduce Emma.
Thank you. I thought about this over the weekend as to what I should do to introduce somebody who's going to introduce themselves. And so I'm just going to tell you that Emma McDonald has been a Rotarian most of her life. She was an interactor, a Rotaractor, president of a Rotaract club. She was a member of the Rotary Club of Thunder Bay, or is it Fort William or Port Arthur or something like that. And then she was in line to be president of the Sioux Lookout Club and got transferred to Kenora. And so you're not here to listen to me talk about Emma, you're here to listen to Emma talk about Emma. Please give a warm Rotary welcome to Emma McDonald.
I'm impressed that by the third time he had to introduce me, he had that memorized.
Emma, do you need any help there?
I don't think so. I'll just walk around and click and... Okay, so this was kind of thrown together last minute. I've done a couple, as Fred said, I've been involved in a couple different clubs, and every time you switch clubs, they ask you to do a vocational talk. So I was like, I have an old presentation, I'll just update it. And then I looked at my old presentation last night and was like, never mind, I guess I have something to do tonight. So I threw some stuff together, a little bit about what I do, a little bit about my involvement in Rotary. I tried to keep sort of a broad overview of everything. So I was born and raised in Thunder Bay. I started in Rotary very young. I'm at about age of 9. I think my dad started bringing me to meetings. So I distinctly remember being introduced as a guest and standing up and everyone still looking around because I was too short to really clear the heads of the other Rotarians. But I started volunteering with my dad at events that he thought it'd be fun to bring me to, and that's kind of how I started getting involved. And then I was involved in Interact. I went to the Rotaract. At the time in Thunder Bay, there was a Rotaract leadership camp that was sort of a pre-RILA thing. Then I went to RILA, then I did Rotaract, and then I did Rotary. So I've kind of run the gamut. I've never been on an international exchange, though. That's the one program I missed on my way through. So I'm going to start off with simply what I do. And it's kind of a joke amongst my friends that I absolutely hate explaining what I do because I always envy teachers and things like that who get to say, I'm a teacher, and everyone goes, ah, and it's done. Public health is misunderstood often to kind of begin with, and then what I do in public health is not clear either. So I hope by the end of this you'll have some idea, but you'll probably still be a little bit confused. So I work in public health, and what public health is, it's often confused with health care, but it's sort of the prevention and promotion population health piece of health. So we do things like health promotion, we're the people who tell you to wash your hands. We do surveillance, so if there's outbreaks of disease, we look at that, monitoring for health trends in different populations. Analysis, we look at epidemics, different ways to prevent disease, and that can include health promotion like, hey, you should wash your hands, but also health promotion in the sense of like, hey, we should make bike lanes because then more people will bike and therefore they'll be more physically active. So those policy pieces are in there too. Also communication and health communication is a big part of it. Looking at risks and what risks pose populations, what risks are posed to populations with regards to their health. And then it also includes a little piece of research to try and figure all that stuff out. So I don't work at the hospital, I work in this building. This is the Northwestern Health Unit City View office, so I'm up on the hill. Northwestern Health Unit is regional. We do have about, give or take 100 staff in Kenora, and then another sort of 50 staff spread from Ignace to Sioux Lookout to Fort Francis, Rainy River in that area. So this is a kind of a good depiction of a little bit about public health. So healthcare, this is an estimation of how much of a person's health is affected by different factors. So healthcare accounts for about 20% of your health. If you think of all the times you're sick, healthcare makes you better, that's sort of that 20%. The rest of the time when you're not really sick, but you're more or less healthy, sort of in the spectrum that wouldn't put you in a hospital or wouldn't put you kind of going to your doctor. That's when all the other stuff comes into play. So health behaviors is a big part of public health. We try and get people to quit smoking, exercise and eat well, reduce their alcohol consumption, and practice safe sex and other harm reduction kind of things. We also, like I said, there's the policy piece with physical environment, so we try to make people's environments a little bit healthier. I work specifically with environmental health, so that we'll look at air pollution, radon, we inspect pools, things like that. And then something that's pretty new to public health in the sense, I'd say in the last 10 to 15 years, they've really started to look at the social determinants of health and people's socioeconomic status and how that has an effect on health. So it's actually 40% of how healthy you are depends on your education, your job status, your income, community safety. There's a pretty exhaustive list, your race, your gender, all those kind of things. So that's a little bit about public health. So what I do, I'm a planning and evaluation specialist is my title. So what I basically do is I work on a smorgasbord, for lack of a better word, of different sort of projects and with a bunch of different teams and try to help them with sort of the planning piece and then the evaluation of how well whatever that intervention or program did. So I do a lot of communications. I help teams develop content, and then that gets sent down to our communications team who then kind of makes it pretty. So any of like the words on a poster I may have written, but I didn't make the poster look pretty. So that's where it gets kind of complicated. I also do health promotion coordination. So if we're doing a communications campaign, I'm kind of the one that says, okay, we need to make posters, we need to do radio ads, we need to do this, and make sure the same messages go out through all those channels. So I do a little bit of that. I also do some project management. So if there's pilot projects or things that teams are working on, I help them with that. A good example was Environmental Health just released an app that you can get on your phone. So I called all the meetings for that, brought together the IT team, the communications team, the environmental health team, and kind of facilitated and ran those meetings to figure out what they wanted in their app, how they wanted to advertise their app, who they wanted their app to be downloaded by, and how do we get those people to download it. Obviously, I'm a planner and evaluator, so I help plan programs, and then I try and gather evidence and write reports, a lot of report writing, to see how programs did. I'm also a presenter and a facilitator. So I facilitate meetings, I facilitate brainstorming sessions with teams as kind of that third party outside eye. And I also, this is more because I like doing it. I present to teams, and I also sometimes take information from teams. So I've presented at some conferences and things on behalf of like the harm reduction team, and I'm actually going this year again to present on our Indigenous engagement strategy as an organization. So the teams I mainly work with are sexual health and harm reduction. So I unfortunately, or fortunately, am kind of in charge of PR for the NEP program, which you can imagine in Kenora is not a fun job. And then I also work with the environmental health team. As I said, I kind of have a smorgasbord of projects. So another project I'm working on, which I'm hoping to pass off to a new hire, fingers crossed. We're working on a climate change and vulnerability adaptation assessment, which is a long way to say we're trying to figure out what climate change is going to do to people's health. And we're trying to figure out what we can do to prevent problems in the future. So this is a quick sort of snapshot across Canada of all the different things that climate change is going to affect. A lot of people don't think of health when they think of climate change, but it's kind of on the up and up. So things like, well, I think the simplest example is like extreme heat and hot days actually have a huge impact on cardiovascular health and that kind of thing. And we need to start thinking about how that's going to impact, like if on hotter days a bunch of people are, you can actually graph it, that on hotter days more people visit the emergency room because a lot of diseases are sort of a lot of things come to light in the high heat and especially in hot nights. So that's going to tax our healthcare system. So we're trying to figure out ways to prevent those kind of problems. Another project I work on, which is pretty recent, is our Indigenous engagement strategy. So fairly recently, the ministry has asked public health to really start to look at how they're engaging with Indigenous populations in their catchment area. Some people might be aware that Indigenous health is technically the responsibility of the federal government, whereas public health is the responsibility of the provincial government. So that kind of discrepancy results in a lot of sort of issues with whose issues it is, basically. A lot of jurisdictional boundaries and things like that. So I'm starting baby steps to try and help the health unit work to figure out how we're going to work with other provincial entities, federal entities, First Nations entities, and make sure that health is sort of public health services are available to everyone. So that, in a nutshell, is kind of what I do. I didn't want to only talk about what I did, so I do have a couple slides about what else I do in the community. So outside of work, I'm involved in roller derby, which is super fun. I was a figure skater for like 9 years, so it was really funny to take sort of a dainty little figure skater and just have people slam into her on roller skates. But we have all the equipment and we do it very safely, and it's a lot of fun.
What's your name?
Nemesis with 2 M's. Yeah, that took a long time and a lot of Facebook polling. This is new. This is very recent, but I'm on the executive of the Young Professionals Network in Kenora, and I say very new. We've had our first meeting, so as to what that'll form into, I'm not sure, but I'm really excited. We have a couple of people who are really into the idea of making YPN a lot bigger in Kenora. I've been helping out host the trivia nights at Bob's, and that's pretty much what has sustained us as a group and kept us going. But I think we have a lot of interest in doing more professional development. People want more social, more networking. Some people are interested in community involvement, so I'm really excited to see where that kind of goes. And then, of course, I'm a Rotarian. So this is a picture from the first time I was inducted. That's Tamara and Stephen. They were both Rotaractors with me. And I think our 3rd year of Rotaract, we showed up to the first meeting, and it was a couple of people had sort of moved away, and we looked at the 3 of us at the table and just sort of said, why don't we just join a club? Like, we were so sick of doing the recruitment every year. We got 3 more people, and it was like, great, and then we'd lose 3. So this is our first picture together as Rotarians. And then within Rotary, every year I should say, twice now I've done the International Youth Camp with the Sioux Lookout Club. So this is, for those of you who don't know, Sioux Lookout runs one of the only international camps in North America. So those students are from across the world, really, a lot from Europe, South America. That year we had a Russian, which was new, a couple from Taiwan. And they come from all over the world to Sioux Lookout, Ontario, to be thrown into the wilderness for about 9 days. And it's a ton of fun. I can't think of any more interesting experience for an international student than asking them to cook their own food over an open fire and asking them to carry those barrels of food of 200 to 2 kilometers through the mud. It's really fun to watch. So that's a big part of my Rotary involvement. And then this is kind of a talk unto itself, so I'm not really going to get into it, but I'm also involved with Full Soul Canada. It's a nonprofit my friend started while she was in her undergrad. I met her during our master's, and we really hit it off. So it's a mostly Rotary-funded nonprofit. She's in Calgary now. She's originally from London, Middlesex area. And they provide maternal medical kits for hospitals in rural Uganda. So during my master's, we worked with her a lot on an evaluation of her project as part of my master's education. And then afterwards, she invited everyone who worked on that project, worked on the evaluation, to actually go to Uganda and deliver some of these medical kits. So that was a really cool experience. So most of these people are Rotarians from all across Canada. It wasn't necessarily a Rotary trip specifically, just the people who were interested were Rotarians, the people who had donated were Rotarians, so off we went.
Did you go to Uganda?
Yes, I'm in that picture. I'm way in the back. But yeah, so that was I'm touching my mic. That was a really cool trip and an interesting experience. Yeah, that's the end of my slides. Like I said, I had to throw this together last night. Is there any questions or anything that anyone wants me that I kind of skimmed over? It's hard. I really know myself, so it's hard to.
I was wondering, Emma, what your educational background is, because it's definitely not just health, given all the skills you seem to have.
Yeah, so my undergrad was in biology, but my master's is actually a master's in public health, and the actual program is that broad. We take management and administration, we take team conflict resolution, but then we also take biostatistics, and we also take social justice classes. It's a weird master's, and that's one of the reasons I hate explaining what I do, because to narrow it down, people are like, you work in public health. Okay, what did you go to school for? And I'm just like, public health. I'm really sorry that doesn't help you answer the question.
Northwest Health Unit has been here for a long time. Do you know when to start?
No, I don't.
You do a lot of studies of statistics and so on. Is there any comparison to the general health of our region now, say, 50 years ago? Northwest Health Unit was here 50 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know if we've done that kind of scale. And I think a problem with that kind of scale would be all the other things in play. The Northwestern Health Unit can't really take full credit if, 50 years ago, 70% of the population was smoking and now only 10% is. So those kind of scales are hard to work with, but that would be, I can ask our epidemiologist specifically is the one who writes the how the health in the region report every year. Anything else? Okay, I'll pass it off then.
Thank you. John to come up and introduce LaDon.
Can you all hear me? No. Thanks, Emma. That was great. What do you do with I know what you do with the extreme heat, but we're in a weather advisory, extreme cold. Any tips? Wear hats and mitts. There you go. You heard it here. My pleasure now to introduce LaDon. She works at the Scotiabank. I first got to know LaDon 10, 12 years ago when she looked after and suggested some mutual funds and that, and very, very efficient in that. And she's been a big supporter of Rotary over the years, volunteering with her son on different occasions. So LaDon, come on up and tell us about yourself.
Thank you, John. And yes, you're absolutely right. It was 13 years ago that I moved here. So hello, everyone. My name is LaDon Klywak. I moved to Kenora 13 years ago. And what brought me to Kenora was the move for my job at the Scotiabank. But I'll start with talking a little bit about how I grew up and where I grew up. I grew up in a small town in southwestern Manitoba, Cartwright. We had 350 people in all of the community, and the entire school was 120 kids from kindergarten right to grade 12. So with it being a small town and quite a distance from a large center, we were quite resourceful. I was the youngest of 5, and I grew up on a farm a mile from town, which is really convenient. You could bike to town if you needed to get to see what's going on in town, or just hang out there. I was really fortunate to grow up on a farm. Our land overlooked a valley, and it had a creek and a pond, and it was the best place to grow up. Many of our spent there at the creek checking out, the minnows and the fish and the animals and the otters, and my brother used to trap, and we had a lot of fun, me and my siblings. We had a mixed farm, both cattle and grain. So a big highlight of the threshing was we had a 1945 grain truck that had no brakes, no windshield wiper. The battery was on the floor in the front. The springs were poking out from the seat, and it was the biggest fight between me and my sisters who could get out there fastest after school had ended to see who could drive this thing. I don't know if it was because it was such a challenge to drive or it was a novelty or what, but yeah, we were pretty vicious, us girls. Elbows? Oh, I might not have to say that too loud, right? With Emma being... So, also growing up in a small town, everyone helped out with everything. And you also needed everyone to participate in everything or you didn't have a team. There was 12 in my graduating class, and 10 of them I'd been in the same class since kindergarten. We had a couple more because we actually had a couple of exchange students. So there were 7 girls in my class, and yeah, in order to make a ball team, we had to scrounge up anyone that we could. We did have a girl, I think we were in grade 6, and we were just shy of having enough for a ball team. And we're all asking her, well, can you play ball? Well, I can't. I don't know how. Well, can you put a glove on your hand? Yeah. Okay, you're on the team. Because the rest of us wanted to play so bad. Yeah, everyone participated. And also with the small community, everyone joined and supported the community, whether it be figure skating, hockey, 4-H, curling, high school. So being resourceful, pitching in, sharing ideas, just if anybody had an idea or something that they would really help out. So I think that really helped me develop as a human, and give back to the community is really important to me. One thing with growing up in a small community, you did leave once you graduated. So I went to Winnipeg. I started with the bank, and Scotiabank is an organization that really gives back to its community, whether it be locally, whether it be nationally, whether it be internationally. So that really tweaked my interest, and I've been with Scotiabank for 20 years. I started out in Scotia Trust with will and estate planning, and then went over to the banking side for lending and loans. I moved to Kenora in a management position. And through those years, I've contributed to local events like the Hockey Day in Canada 2017. Scotiabank has also put in teams for the Cancer Relay for Life, juvenile diabetes. So all of those I helped pitched in and contributed the best that I could to those events. I've been married now for 20 years, coming up in June. My son's in grade 11, and he goes to St. Thomas Aquinas High School. And I'm hoping that some of those attributes of giving back to the community and sharing what you know and rolling up your sleeves and pitching in will carry on through him as well. I know when he helped out with the Lobster Fest, he had a great time, and he really seen the camaraderie amongst everyone. My husband, unfortunately, he drives trucks, so he can't contribute at the same capacity, but when we were newly married, he was coaching the Pee Wee team. That was his giving back to the community. He was also grew up in the farming community, and everyone helps out to make things happen. So I know his team, they went to the provincials in Manitoba, and they got silver. That was quite a highlight in his life. And once our son's growing up, he will be going back to the road more full time. So going away for 2 weeks at a time, home for a week. So I'm not really looking forward to that, but if that's what he needs to do, that's what he needs to do. But we are planning on staying in Kenora till the day we die. And I picked a house when we moved here that is all one level, so it doesn't matter if I'm in a wheelchair or in crutches, because I am a little accident prone. It should work out. So that's a little bit about me. Any questions? All right.
Okay, thank you, LaDon, and thank you, Emma. We really appreciate hearing more about you. Both presentations were wonderful, and I hope you weren't too intimidated by the fact that we had the camera on you today. We appreciate Vicki being back. Thank you, Vicki.